Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Today I'm going to put some Skunk2 parts on my 91 Civic Si. Got a couple of parts to make it look a little bit prettier in my engine bay. Got the oil cap, VTEC solenoid, fuel rail, plug wire cover, the little master cylinder sock. This is the shift knob, this is the short shifter, and this is the shifter hardware for the short shifter on your shift linkage. Let's get those put on today. Should be a relatively simple and quick install. And here's how it looks currently. You may notice that my VTEC solenoid is missing. I'll show you why in a moment. I have that generic Skunk2 plug wire cover. My fuel rail is a Godspeed, and the oil cap is just an OEM one. Now I know Skunk2 makes the VTEC solenoid cover, but on these 88 to 91 B series VTEC solenoids, that cover does not fit. The VTEC solenoid is actually a larger housing right here as compared to the 92 and up. So I didn't want to look ugly. This thing had looked a little rough and worn out before, so I just sanded it down a little bit and then just applied some aluminum silver paint to it just to make it look a little bit nicer. Here's just a quick look at the Skunk2 compared to the old one. I like how this has its own hardware, which is sunken in when you mount it. I also am replacing both of the gaskets which go on the VTEC solenoid. Mine are pretty old and they're kind of flat, and I didn't want to risk any leaks. I just figured it was smart to replace it. But I'm going to get that installed. If you're interested in learning how to install it, Skunk2 has a great instructional video. I'm going to go ahead and link that in the upper right corner right now. Alright, the VTEC solenoid is done. Left off the spark plug wire holder. I'm going to go ahead and paint that small little bracket, and I ran out of heat shrink. I'm going to put some more heat shrink on this wire here just so it looks a little bit cleaner. Then the oil cap and the plug wire cover. Here's a look at that fuel rail up close. Looks really nice. It's that composite fuel rail. This is the version that allows you to mount the fuel pressure regulator on the rail itself. It has new hardware, which is really nice. The dress-up hardware. And it also comes with the supplied O-rings for the fuel injector, so if you didn't have new ones to use, it's great. That way you don't have to worry about any leaks from reusing the old injector O-rings. Now if you're watching this video and you're interested in replacing a fuel rail, I'll kind of run it by you real quick. First we need to get the injector clips removed. These have little rectangular metal clips on the edges right here. You need to slide it away, and on the opposite edge you slide that one away, and you'll be able to slide the clips up. We're going to reuse this nut at the end of the fuel rail. Even the crush washers that are in there, I'm going to go ahead and reuse those. I've done it before and I shouldn't have an issue. And then there's three, depends on your rail, let me see. On the back here, you're going to need to remove whatever hardware it is. Mine is a combination of nuts, it looks like. Sometimes it will be bolts depending on the fuel rail that's on the car. So you have three. One is on the left side, close to the first runner. The other one is right in the middle between runners 2 and 3. And the last one over here is another one also. And then fuel pressure regulator, usually held on by two 10mm bolts on both sides of it. And the fuel return line, usually I have a different kind of bracket on here, but it's normally one of those clips that you can just use the pliers to squeeze it and slide it off. If you've driven your car recently, go ahead and loosen up the gas cap. That'll just relieve any sort of pressure that's built up in the system, so that way when you disconnect the fuel rail, you don't have all this excessive gas pouring all over the place. Now on the intake manifold, you need to get the little studs removed. I'll usually use a combination of 2 bolts. I'm just going to try some pliers first, see if they'll spin. I don't think they're in super tight from when I first installed them. I had different lengths on them, so I had to put that washer to kind of space this particular fuel rail out so it sat in the correct position. And then I had washers on top also, which where those studs come through, there wasn't enough threaded area, so I put the washers on there to accommodate for it, but it fit perfectly after that. So now I need to figure out where the little spacers go. I imagine they go on the bottom side here. Yeah, after looking at the height where the injectors fit, I think they're going to go on the bottom there. And then the hardware, of course, just feeds through in the top. So depending on your application, if you are doing this, just kind of pay attention to that. You don't want the fuel rail sitting I'm sorry, the fuel injector sitting flush on the fuel rail with that little spacer in there. But I'm going to swap over the injectors now using the new supplied O-rings. Get those put on here and see how we can get it fitted onto the intake manifold. Here's a look at the fuel rail finished up. That was a straightforward process throughout. The washers bolted up perfectly with the new hardware. The only thing that was different was the bolt at the end. It has a supplied nut that came with that Godspeed one that you saw before. It looked like a little bullet. I had to use an OEM one because the thread pitch on that Godspeed was a little different, so I wasn't able to use that nut that was on that particular fuel rail. So I had a couple of these laying around, so I went in and put that on. I put a couple of new crush washers on there just to avoid any leaks, and from the first start, which I did it right now, I didn't have any leaks at all. Everything worked out perfect. And lastly, let's get this shift knob and shifter put on the car. I'm going to run you how to do it real quick, and the first thing you need to do is remove your shift knob, depending on what you have. Mine just spins off. At the front of the transmission, we're going to need to get the shift linkage pin removed. You need to slide off this cover, and then once you have that cover off, you have the pin inside here that you need to push through. There's a few different methods you can use. I usually use an old bolt. I hold it with some pliers and I hit it with a hammer, and then I remove the 12mm bolt which holds the other end of the shift linkage to the transmission. And once the front is out, all you need to do is get these two 12mm bolts removed on the rear part of the linkage. I have that aluminum bushing in there. That's why mine might look just a little bit different than the one you're removing. Once you get those last two removed, you can just slide it right out. I have an old, this is a B&M, it's the Edge short shifter. I like it. It's actually really nice. It's tight and crisp. Of course, I'm just upgrading all my parts to Skunk2 on this car because that's the theme I wanted to go for. So that's the only reason we're swapping out the shifter. I like this one a lot though. Now all you gotta do is remove the hardware. There's a bolt which slides through. It's a 12mm nut and bolt. And then two 10mm nuts holding the shifter assembly to the upper part of the shift linkage. And here's a look at it finished up. Now I don't like these on the shift linkage. These go on the top. I replaced mine with just two bolts instead with the 10mm nuts. These can be a pain in the butt to get off, so I just went ahead and removed them. And this is a little different since it has the Skunk2 hardware. You have to use a 6mm hex head, and then on the back was a 13mm nut. So it's a little bit different combination of hardware there, but everything worked out perfectly. And here's a look at that B&M shifter next to it. It looks like it's shorter in height as well. It's not as tall of a shifter. Really solid. I might use it on one of my other cars, or I may just sell it. But go ahead and reinstall that. It's the reverse as the way you just pulled it off. Then go ahead and get the shift knob threaded back on. It has a supplied locking nut, that way you can have it correctly facing the direction you want. And you're done. And here's a look at the finished up engine bay. Real small subtle differences. I like the way it looks. Looks clean. Fuel rail looks real nice. The oil cap, wire cover, VTEC solenoid, all nice small additions to just the overall look of this engine bay. Same with that reservoir cover too. Haven't driven this car in a while because of that exhaust. Maybe you saw my Skunk2 exhaust video. It sits out a little far, and I'm worried of melting my bumper. So I really haven't driven this car since that last time that I made that exhaust video. So hopefully next I can get that Skunk2 header, get that installed, get the test pipe fit so I can pull the exhaust in a little bit further, and get this car back on the road. Need to wash it up and just want to enjoy driving it again. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.